Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to continue talking about the graph and the vertex form of a quadratic relationship, right, of a parabola. So if you don't have it already, you should have grabbed a couple pieces of graph paper that you're going to use to copy down this note, because there's a couple graphs. And just going to formalize some of the stuff we were talking about in the activities at the end of last week. But the first thing is, we've been looking at the vertex form, but we're going to kind of formalize that now. So just like there's a y equals mx plus b for the equation of a line, we're going to talk about the general format of the equation of a parabola. So here we go. The vertex form of a quadratic relationship is, so this is what the equation looks like. So something like y equals a x minus h squared and then plus k. Okay, so hopefully you remember from the work we've done, right, that this h in here, right, inside the bracket is what moves the parabola left and right. K is what moves it up and down. And a affects the direction in the step pattern. So that's what this next part is going to be down here. So from that equation, we get the h and k are the coordinates of the vertex, right? We can use that information to read the vertex off right away. Okay, and the value of a determines the direction of opening and the step pattern of the parabola, right? So when a is positive, it opens up. When a is negative, it opens down. Okay, so we're going to look at two examples, and again, through the activities last week, we've kind of already done this, but we're just sort of summarizing it now into your notes. So here's example one. So take a minute. This might be a good moment to pause the video for a couple minutes for students to get the graph sketch properly in their notes, and we're going to go through and determine the equation of this graph. Okay, so again, for vertex form, the key thing we need to know is what's the vertex. So we'll start with that. Okay, and what's the step pattern? Okay, so our vertex is located here. Okay, and right, that's 1 over, and there's 5, so 6, 7, 8, that's 8 down. So the coordinates of the vertex is 1 and negative 8. Okay, and the second thing I need to know is what's the step pattern, because that will determine the value of a. So when I go here, right, I go over 1 and I go up 2. I go over 1 and this goes up 6. Okay, and if you're familiar with it from last week, that means the next one will be 10 and so on. So I have going up 2, going up 6, going up 10. Okay, so this step pattern is double the basic pattern of 1, 3, 5. And now I have enough information right there to write my equation. So therefore, right, my equation will be y equals, okay, starts with the start of the step pattern. So I have 2. Okay, and then I have x minus 1. Again, right, what you see inside the brackets is kind of the opposite. This is positive 1, but I see take away 1 here because it's take away h. Don't forget the squared. That's really important. Okay, and then we have subtract 8. And that's it right there. There's my equation. Y equals 2, x minus 1 squared minus 8. Okay, so example 2, same idea. So what I'd like you to do is try this one on your own for a few minutes. Okay, again, copy the graph down. Just be careful with the scale, right? Look carefully here at what we have before you get into that, graphing that too much. Okay, But yeah, pause. So this would be a good time to pause the video, let the class try to figure this one out first, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, so if you're back, we should be ready to go. Okay, so same thing. The two things we need are the vertex. So we'll start with that. Okay, so we're at -4, and on this axis, okay, again, I said mind the scale, right? Every 2 blocks is going up by 1 here. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so my vertex is at -4 and +3. Okay, that part's done. Okay, again, being mindful of the scale, this is -5, right? So going over 1 is actually going over here. Okay, so when I go over 1, how much do I go down? Well, that's only going from here to here, right? So I only went down 1/2. So in terms of my step pattern, okay, the first step is -1/2, okay? Or if you prefer the decimals, you could say that's -0.5, right? Okay, so what's my next one? Well, when I go over 1, I go down 1, 2, 3 half blocks. So my second step is -3.5, okay, or -1.5 if you prefer decimals. Okay, the next time when I go over 1, how much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half blocks. So this is -5/2. Or -2.5. Okay, so now again, I have all the information I need. So it's going to be y equals, okay, our step starts with -1/2. So that's going to be the start of our equation, -1/2. Okay, and then x, I had -4 here, so I have the opposite inside the brackets, so that's +4. Okay, don't forget the squared. And then I have +3. Okay, so that was a little annoying because there's some fractions involved and the scale wasn't quite the same here. So I'm going to show you a second technique that accomplishes the same thing, okay, without having to try to read this off the graph. Okay, like if the step pattern is easy to read off the graph, you may as well just do that. But if for some reason it's not, there's another way we can do this. Okay, so I'm going to show you a second method of how we can do that. So the second method that we're going to look at is this. Okay, that if it's, I'm sorry, not vertex, this is step pattern. Okay, if the step pattern is difficult to find by looking at the graph, okay, another way we can do this is take the equation, substitute in another point that we know, and solve for a that way. Okay, so it works like this. We start with a vertex form, and we don't fill in the a yet. So say y equals a, and then let's pop back here. We had x plus 4 squared. And I think that was +3. Yep. Okay. +3. Okay, so again, let's say for some reason I was having a hard time identifying the step pattern, so I didn't know what a was. So what I do instead is I go back to my graph, okay, and I'm going to pick some other point on the graph that's nice to read. So maybe say like this one right here. Okay, this point has coordinates -2 and 1. Okay, so I'm going to use this point. So we're going to substitute -2 and 1 into the equation. Okay, and I'm using some short forms here because it's really hard to write with this mouse. Okay, so just before we go and substitute, right, as a little reminder, okay, remember which coordinate comes first. Right, this is my x coordinate in my point, and this is my y coordinate. So in this equation, right, the -2 goes in where I see x, and the -1 goes in where I see y. So let's try it out. So I have 1 equals a, then I have -2 plus 4 squared plus 3. Again, I put 1 where I had y, and I put -2 where I had x. So let's start tidying up this expression. Okay, -2 plus 4, that is 2. I'm going to square that and add 3. Okay, 1 equals, so 2 squared is 4. Okay, and I have a times 4 plus 3. Now, normally when we have a variable, right, we don't write a times 4, we write it the other way. So this is equal to 4a plus 3. Okay, so now we have a little bit of equation solving to do here. So I'm just going to bring this up. Okay, so what do I do to keep solving this equation? Right, I'm trying to get the a by itself, so I'm going to move the 3 to the other side. So I have 1 take away 3 equals 4a. So that's a -2 equals 4a. Okay, and my final step would be to divide both sides by 4 to get the a by itself. Okay, so on this side I have -2 over 4 is equal to a. Of course, the fraction -2 over 4, right, 2/4 is the same as a half. So -1/2 is equal to a. Okay, and I got the value for a for my equation, okay, which was the same as what we had on the other page. Okay, so those are the two methods, right, of how you can figure out what the value of a is. Okay, so thanks for working this through. Okay, so one of two things you can do here, okay, as you already have on this little handout. Okay, one thing you can do, page 213 in your textbook, number 4 and 5, okay, will allow you to continue practicing this technique, right, and making sure you can get the equation from the graph and vice versa. Okay, like this is probably the really important skill in terms of the graphing, is working with the vertex form and being able to make the equation from the graph. Okay, so you can work on this. Okay. If you weren't here late last week, okay, or didn't finish that mini assignment that kind of involves this stuff, okay, you can finish that up and please hand that in to the teacher, okay, and I'll collect it from them at the end of the day. Okay, so you got a couple things to work on. Okay, again, if you don't have your textbook, it's only 2 questions, so my textbook should be on the front desk. As we usually do when this happens. If you don't have your book, just maybe come up and have a look, or take your device and take a quick picture of it so you can work with it at your desk. Okay, so thanks for working this through, and I will see you tomorrow. Okay, don't forget, again, tomorrow is going to be a quiz on the stuff from last week. And the main stuff we looked at was the basic equation of a line and the basic stuff for a parabola, being able to graph it and label and interpret. Okay, so that's something else you should probably think about. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.